Hello and welcome back to the Book, Business, and Brand Building Summit. Here we are 4 days in, and it's already been quite a ride. I've loved the live presentation so far. I appreciate all of you joining live. We've had hundreds of people on the broadcasts, and of course, thousands, all of you seeing the replays, getting to learn from the different speakers and presenters we've had so far. And in a sense, we're still just getting going. In today's session, we had a last minute scheduling change. I'll give you a little peek behind the scenes. It's no easy task coordinating 25 different people, many of whom are have a lot going on in their own lives and businesses. But we had a scheduling change with Jason Van Orden, founder of Internet Business Mastery podcast, who was originally scheduled to go right now with an interview. So yesterday decided to change it up. He will be live on June 29th at 11 a.m. Pacific. And instead today, I decided to do something that I think will be super valuable for all of you, which is this live Q&A session. As pretty much all of you know, unless you only registered for this event through the free book sales page template that we created and offered, then almost all of you received an email shortly after you got your welcome email saying, hey, what's your number one question about really completing a great looking book and using it to really build out your business and brand, as well as make it a bestseller? So, for many of you, I've stayed up late into the night responding to actually hundreds of emails. And I know from many of your replies, many of your responses, that you really appreciate that personal touch. And quite frankly, it's my pleasure. This is the time of year when I just want to do a big give back to authors and entrepreneurs, share what we've learned here at Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, publishing now 20 books in less than the last 2 years, almost all of them hitting at least #1 on Amazon in some relevant category. I think 17 or 18 out of 20. We're still working on those other 2. So we've learned a few things, and I've grown as a publisher and as an author and as a book marketer. So let's use this opportunity to just dive into what's on your mind. And to that effect, I've compiled a bunch of questions that sort of touch on some recurring themes that have come up in your responses to my email of asking, what's that #1 question for you? What's the biggest concern that you have, or the biggest aspiration you have for your book that you're unsure about how to tackle? So you are welcome to log into the chat on the chat wing, which you should see underneath this video, and ask any additional questions there. But I'm going to start by drawing from some of the questions that I've pulled from the emails that really touch on some recurring themes, and then do my best to answer those pretty definitively and point you towards some additional resources that can really help answer these in a more complete and comprehensive way. So it's just me, it's just us, and let's jump into it. We got a question here from Charlie in Leeds, United Kingdom. So he's currently trying to compile a pamphlet, a book of poetry. And he says, I suppose my main concern is whether I can produce anything worth reading, or whether I can create any meaningful impact with what I write. He says, thanks again for setting up the summit. It came at a very opportune time. And thank you, Charlie. So, I'm using Charlie as an example here, but I would say that the #1 question / concern that I'm hearing, both through your emails and through my extensive work with a number of different authors, is this same general theme, this concern of, do I really have something to say? Do I have content, ideas, a message that's actually going to touch people and that's worth writing, that people will find worth reading? And of course, this speaks to a deeper issue than just whatever your book itself is focused on. And what I find and what I've found is that, for authors and for other people that step forward as a face, as a voice for their business and brand, there's always that loop running in your head, which goes something like this: who am I to dot, dot, dot. Who am I to write a book on poetry in Charlie's case? Who am I to write a book on business? Who am I to write a book on personal development? Who am I to make a video training series? Who am I to run a live event? And I got to tell you that the more you ask that question, and if you think of who am I to as an acronym, what does it spell? WAIT. Who am I to? You're playing this loop that I call the waiting game, right? Asking yourself a question that presupposes a negative answer. If you ask yourself, who am I to do X, Y, and Z? It's almost natural to respond in the negative or to talk yourself out of pursuing that course of action. So for this, I created a video called Don't Wait Another Day. And I'm putting that into the chat thread now, which links you over to it. It's on my Vimeo account, not on my YouTube, but there's a direct link. And you're welcome to bookmark that, watch it at a future time. But I'll also just tell you sort of the solution to this. So when you're asking yourself this question, who am I to do X, Y, and Z? You're placing too much focus, too much emphasis on yourself. I mean, it's built into the question, who am I to? And if you can shift that to be something more along the lines of who can I serve? Who can I help? Who can I really add value to with my accumulated knowledge, wisdom, experience in life? Then you're starting to ask a question that will lead you towards creating something people will enjoy reading. People will get value from. People will see you as the authority and the credible expert or leader in your field. And it's a function of placing that emphasis on your reader, right? So it's going from who am I to who can I help? Who can I serve and support? And as an auxiliary to this, because then you're going to say, okay, well, now I'm focused on, who can I support? Who can I serve? But how do I go about that? So picture this spectrum, if you will, right? On the one hand, let's say over here, you've got the absolute beginner, right? Somebody who's entering a new field, let's call it coaching, and say you're working on a book on coaching. And I know there's a lot of coaches here as part of the Book Business and Brand Building Summit, so it's fairly accurate. And so you're over here and you're a complete beginner. You've never done coaching. You've maybe heard about coaching, but you haven't really read any resources. You've not coached other people. You're a total beginner, right? And over here on the opposite end, let's say is just one of the world's foremost expert coaches, maybe a Tony Robbins or a Steve Chandler, somebody who's just totally experienced, worked with hundreds, if not thousands or more people, and is a complete expert, right? So there's the spectrum. Now, where is everybody else in the world? Somewhere in between. And here's why that's important. So say you're a couple years in to coaching, right? You have relevant experience, you have relevant information and knowledge to help the other people that are a few steps behind you. Now that can be a few months, a few years behind you, but somebody that's aspiring to accomplish and achieve the same things you have, that is your initial audience. Those are the people that you should be focusing on once you shift that question from who am I to coach people, for example, to how can I really help somebody who's, me a year ago, right? One of the best ways to really focus in and provide valuable content, training, service, information, what have you, is to think about what do you wish you knew, or what guide or what practice, what principles do you wish you discovered 1 or 2 years ago in your own life journey. Some of the best books have been written with this premise, perhaps even mine included. I mean, when I wrote Lifestyle Entrepreneur, I was thinking, what's the book that I would have loved to read when I was like 18, 19 years old, just getting started, just becoming an adult? And that's the mindset I took setting out to write it. Of course, this was on the tail end of 10 years of entrepreneurial experience, but that is the mindset of saying, one, how can I help the person who's a few steps behind me on this spectrum, on this continuum? And two, how do I write and how do I position it in a way that it would be the valuable resource, the thing that I would have loved to find back in that day and then at that time. So I wanted to kick off this Q&A by addressing quite literally the number one question or concern that I see authors and entrepreneurs face, which is, if you really get down to it, it's a question of worthiness and self-esteem. And so there's a key distinction that let's say demarcates this shift from who am I to who can I serve. And it's the shift from proving your worth over here. Hey, I'm good enough to write a book. Hey, I've done enough coaching sessions to coach others. Hey, I've done this many certifications, so now I can practice in all these different modalities. And now maybe, just maybe, I'm worthy of coaching other people. That's the mindset of self-worth. But if you shift over to providing value, then it really just takes the emphasis off you completely. And you become more of a messenger, a channel, a pass-through for the accumulated knowledge, wisdom, and experience you have. And, if you really think about the people you admire most, is it because they're on stage telling you how cool they are and how many things they've done and how many people they've worked with and how many successful people that they know and are friends with? Is that what attracts you to them? Or is it the fact that they have a way to pinpoint something in your life and provide valuable and tangible information that brings about results? And is that why you're actually interested in them? Well, that's the same mindset that I encourage you to adopt. And it really helps overcome this question of who am I to, or am I worthy to do X, Y, and Z, and shifts it over from proving worth to providing value. So there we go. Question number one. It's a biggie. And let's move on to a couple more. So we've got a question from Tiffany Moore saying, my number one question is, how do I find the time? How do I find the time? And, that's all that she actually wrote. And I know that many of you are struggling with some variation of this question in a different shape or form. How do I find time to write my book when I have a job? How do I find time to build my business and brand when I have a family and obligations? And I've got a great resource for you here. So here's a link in the chat to my YouTube channel. Just put that in and shoot you over there. On that channel, there's a video, and I'll just link to that one as well, called Productivity and Progress, as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me just put that in as well. 2, 4, and there's a direct link to that video. So in this video, right, in Productivity and Progress, it's really tackling how do you find the time. And my solution for that is what I call 1 to 2 hours a day, 3 to 4 times per week. And that's something that's realistic for you to carve out and dedicate to whatever it is, your book, your business, or your brand building initiatives, that is reasonable, right? That you can actually handle this, even in light of having other responsibilities, job, and family obligations. So in those 1 to 2 hours a day, 3 to 4 times a week, you block this time out on your calendar. You do it far into the future. You could even do it right now if you're feeling super motivated. And what this does is it creates some mental space for you, where if you're really working out of your calendar, if you live and work based out of your calendar, I certainly do, then I can look forward and say, there's that block of time that I'm dedicating to doing X, right? And so even as you put that into the schedule, it starts to shift your mind subconsciously towards, okay, well, what am I going to do when that time rolls around and I get to show up 100%? Maybe that's a writing session. Maybe that's something around building your audience and interacting and engaging with other people in your community. Maybe it's something like reaching out to other influencers and people in the industry so you can start to build relationships, which quite frankly is always a good move, always a good idea, to be building relationship value with other people in the industry that you're entering. And with those 1 to 2 hours a day, 3 to 4 times a week, that's just the bare minimum. But that is enough to get the ball rolling and to get you started moving in the direction that's going to build momentum. And, it's so important to get momentum, because once you start having a consistent schedule, even if you're only allocating an hour or two a day, a few times a week, I can tell you what's going to happen based on personal experience is you're going to start to get more excited about those blocks of time that are coming up, and you'll start to sort of shift your own planning and so forth to allow more of that time into your schedule. And this is a great thing because, it's just like if you haven't worked out for, weeks or months, and then if you go to the gym and just exercise every single muscle to your total fullest capacity, you're going to be sore for like a week, right? So you don't want to just be, you don't want to take that same approach to your book or your business or your brand, which would be the equivalent of saying, all right, I'm going to be a weekend warrior, right? I got my job, I've got everything going on in the week, then I'm going to dedicate like 10 hours this Sunday towards, doing writing and building my website and whatever else that you're focusing on. That's not actually the recipe for consistent progress and success, because then it's just this one huge burst of activity followed by a lull, followed by a silence. Much better is to take this 1 to 2 hours a day, 3 to 4 times a week approach, and block that time out in your schedule, and just know that you don't have to know exactly what's going to happen in each of those blocks of time, but that when you do show up, you're 100% focused on either writing or structuring a book, or even researching and learning new information, perhaps catching up on some of the videos from this very summit if you're in a space of learning and just sort of assessing the different options and avenues that you can take with your book business and brand. So there's that video as well, and a link to my YouTube, which quite frankly, even before the summit started, I'm always in conversation with authors and entrepreneurs. And that's true professionally, but it's also always been a personal interest of mine. So I'm always synthesizing what are the recurring themes that I hear when I'm in dialogue with other authors or with other business owners and entrepreneurs. And those are the things, those are the themes that I try and pick up on. And I go and I film videos once a month. So I can even tell you my own productivity schedule on creating content. It's sort of a twofold process. I mean, throughout any given week, in the course of any given month, I'm talking to dozens of authors. Some of them we're exploring publishing with, some of them I'm already working with, some are clients that are in one of my training programs. But always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, have I heard this question? Have I heard this theme? Have I heard this concern or this objection a number of times? If so, maybe I can definitively answer it in a video. And so I just make a couple notes of those. And then once a month, I go and I spend a half a day with a videographer in San Francisco. Shout out to Michael Hunter, who's been a great friend and resource on getting all these videos made. And then I just show up and look at my list, and similar to what we're doing now, but in a little bit different setting and format, just answer these questions and do it in a block of time. So instead of thinking about, oh, I've got to do videos 3 times a week, no, I do videos once a month, and then they get edited down. I get the finished videos, and then I upload and go through a promotion and distribution process, which is related, but a little bit of a separate subject from what this ultimately, one of these top questions is how do I find the time? Well, the answer is you don't find the time, you actually make the time. And I'm a firm believer that entrepreneurs make time, authors make time. It's not about finding or being reactive and looking up one moment saying, oh, wow, all of a sudden for a moment, there's a little bit of calm. Maybe I'll actually write now. Nope, unfortunately, you have to be more proactive than that in scheduling and staying committed to your own progress and development. Now, this is a great place where a coach or an accountability partner can come in and help, but ultimately it has to be a self-directed initiative to block out the time and cross that threshold from whatever else was going on before. You're at work, you had a fight with your spouse, what have you. You want to be able to compartmentalize as much as possible when you step into this space, because this is your sacred space to create, to build your community, to really expand the reach of your book, business, and brand. You should treat it accordingly with a great deal of respect. So let's move on to another question. And of course, if you guys have any live questions for me now, you can pop them into the chat wing under this video. And just before we start this next question, I guess this would be a good time to make two short announcements. One is, in addition to running the Book Business and Brand Building Summit, this is a big undertaking that I'm doing to reach and meet a ton of new authors and entrepreneurs. But my core business is publishing. I run a publishing company called Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press. All of the books you see behind me are books that I've personally worked with the authors to make them look great, get them done in every format, published and onto the bestseller charts. And if you're interested in exploring an author-publisher relationship with me and with Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, there's a button underneath this video called something to the effect of Talk to Jesse. Yes. And that will take you to a consultation page on my website where you can fill it out, give me a little more information. And if you are interested in exploring publishing, then that is the way to get into that conversation with me about your book. All right, so let's jump into another question here. And we have sort of a related one from Grant Leishman saying, how to find the balance between writing and doing all the other things required to build the brand, as in selling, marketing, etc. This is good because it's an expansion on the question of how do I find the time just in general, but it's more a question of balance. And, when I think of how do you find the time to balance between writing and other business initiatives, I mean, maybe it'd be helpful to sort of model my own schedule and approach, which really looks something like this. I mean, no matter where I'm traveling, where I am in the world, my day, any given day, looks pretty consistent and pretty similar. And, I get up in the morning, I stretch, I go do a workout, get the body moving, get the blood flowing, take my mind off of everything else and just focus on being active. And then come home, shower up, eat a healthy breakfast. At that point, I sit down, and it's usually around 10:30, sometimes even 11. And for the next 2 hours or so, I just dive into tackling the top most priorities. So whatever's really going to move the needle the most at that day and time, that's where I'm focusing my energy and effort. Now, that could be writing. That could also be shooting videos to invite the speakers onto the Book Business and Brand Building Summit. It could be writing website copy for an upcoming live event that I'm doing. Something that basically has to be self-generated and that I can't really delegate or outsource. Those are the things that I focus on at what I consider my peak moment of productivity. So if you look at the day sort of as an arc where you're starting, and in the beginning phase, you're waking up. I'm not a morning person. I'm not the guy who gets up and writes at 5 a.m. I'm rather the guy that gets up, exercises, takes care of all the physical maintenance aspect of being alive, and then shift gears after I'm fed and exercised to focusing on the top most important initiatives, because this is a time when you can be proactive, right? I'm not going in my email and seeing what everybody else in the world wants me to do. I'm being proactive, meaning I'm sitting and I'm focused on accomplishing something in that 2 hour time, 2 to 3 hours. And then shift gears, maybe eat some lunch. And in the afternoon is when I have my schedule opened up for calls with authors, calls with potential authors and clients, calls with partners and people on my team members. And ultimately shift from things that are internally generated and proactive into things that are more reactive, where I'm in conversation, in collaboration, working with other people, having calls, and being more externally focused in that sense. So that sort of takes me over the hump and into the tail end of the workday. And I'll usually have calls of this nature from 1 to like 5 p.m. Now, I get it. Some of you may not be full-time with all of this yet. And certainly there's a benefit to the fact that, my entire day is allocated in one way or another to working on the different books that we've published, working on the summit, working on other initiatives. But you want to try and find the balance where you're focusing on writing and creativity and producing content, producing things that really nobody else can do for you, and see where does that fit into the flow of your day, and then separate that from the things that are more reactive, where you are replying to email, you're talking to potential vendors or clients or partners or team members, and you're getting involved in, let's say, other people's stuff. I find for myself, I can't really reverse those. If I start in a reactive state, it's very hard to dial that back, shift gears, center, focus, and then move into a proactive, creative place. So that's why I always try and stack that first in the day. Let me take a sip of water. We'll dive into one of the next questions. All right, great. So we've got a question from Victoria saying, hey, Jesse, for me, my biggest question is, how do I really create a well-written book, not just a good product, quote unquote? And for me in particular, in her case, writing a high quality memoir. Well, I'll talk about the whole writing side of how do you really create a good book. And within that YouTube channel link that I shared, I'll grab this other link for you guys now. I've created a 4-part video training series that I call How to Become a Best-Selling Author in 2016. So let me pull this up and share it into the chat. And the first video in this series is all about, well, actually the first two, it's about how do you envision your book as one part of your broader business and brand. I think that one's called How to Structure Your Book for Success from Day One. And then the next one is about rapid content creation techniques. So these two together definitely answer Victoria's question, and should also give a lot of insight to this process of using a book to build your business and brand from a high level. And so really what that entails is, first having the vision for what your book readers would best benefit from doing next. So if you have a book that, let's say you have a business where you want to do a live event, and you guys already saw my interview with Rosetta Thurman, who is a great exponent of this strategy, had her book called Launch Your Business, you can see it up there behind me, and her live event called Launch Your Business Live. And so in her case, the vision for the book extended into a live event and ultimately into a coaching and mastermind program that she formed. That's just one example of what I cover in that first video in the series I just linked to, which is how to structure your book for success from day one and how to envision it as part of your broader business and brand. So that's one piece. But now for the book itself, there's a lot of information in that video as well on how to structure a content framework, right? So before you even start writing, it's not necessarily the best idea to just open up a document and be like, I was born in San Francisco in 1981. You don't have to start from the beginning of the book, but rather if you start by thinking, what's the content framework, what's the outline or the flow, then you can get down to a place where you've identified pretty discreetly the different stories, the strategies, the tips, the content that you do want to share with your audience overall. And then you can create those blocks of time like we talked about to actually tackle the content creation. So one example of a content framework is there's actually two. So for one, in Lifestyle Entrepreneur, I used a model called the Vision Map Framework. And I'm just going to pull it up and actually show it to you here. So here's the Vision Map Framework, right? And so it's vision, and then MAP stands for mission, actions, and product. And so this section of the book is delineated into these 4 components, and they spell something that that has relevance and meaning to the reader. So vision map, we're going to create the map to help achieve your vision for creating an online business, right? And so with vision map in place, now there's at least 4 sections for content: vision, mission, actions, and product. And then you can go a step further and say, okay, well, what are the 2 or 3 things that I really want readers to know about creating a vision, having a big vision, maintaining that vision under adverse circumstances? I can jot down a couple things on that. Then I ask myself, all right, well, what are 2 or 3 important considerations on mission statement, how a mission basically allows people to rally around your cause and identify with you as somebody that they want to associate with, learn from, work with, and partner with. That's all under the topics of your mission, right? You do the same thing for the other components of an acronym, in this case using vision map. But for you, you can think of, there's so many variations. Like in Powerful Words, one of our other books, is now creating a whole legacy program called Powerful Legacy. And the word powerful is an acronym where each letter, so POWE, each of those describes a step in the process of creating your powerful legacy. So one technique for actually creating a high quality book is to look at it as falling within a framework like an acronym, something that describes the overall content and experience people are going to have from reading it, but also puts it into a mnemonic device, something that people can look at and visually associate with, but that also spells out the steps. And this is pretty easy to do because you can more or less describe any step in the process using some word that begins with the letter that you need for your acronym. And here's another option, is a multi-step process. So if you envision, or if you think of 7 habits of highly effective people, well, guess what the book outline probably looks like. There's going to be 7 main sections, each one dedicated to one of these habits of effective people. So you can have a multi-step process, or an acronym are 2 structures that I've created and talked about here and in the video series that I link to that can help you start to structure and outline your book so that when you do actually sit down to do the writing, you're not shooting in the dark. You're not looking at a blank page and saying, okay, where do we go from here? You're not feeling overwhelmed because there's so much to say, but you don't even know where to start. Instead, you're saying, okay, well, yesterday I wrote about step 1 in my 7-part process, and today I'm going to write about step 2. Right? So it makes it a lot easier to start from this place of having a structure, a content framework, if you will, and the vision for how this plays into your broader business and brand initiative. So just going back to Launch Your Business by Rosetta Thurman, they were talking about before, her subtitle is something to the effect of, the 5-step process to quit your job, travel the world, and do what you love as a business owner. And don't quote me on that, but it's something similar to that. And it is a 5-step process, right? So again, now the book is organized into 5 main components. And guess what she's covering at her live event? Guess what she's focusing on with her one-on-one clients? Guess what topics they're using for discussion in her mastermind group? Those 5 steps, and going into deeper levels of depth and expanded levels of strategy and implementation around the same content framework. So that's really getting to the root of how do you both envision a book that can be a great standalone book. You're never going to hear me say, just think of your book as a business card. I don't believe that at all. Rather, I think your book is something that must be intrinsically valuable and have the potential to really change or impact somebody's lives. If you're in the nonfiction section, if you're in fiction or in children's books, then you just want to focus on how do you tell the best story, how do you get the best way to convey the information. But seeing how that plays forward into the other opportunities you have as a business owner is, in large part, can flow from this content framework or an acronym or a multi-step process. And I hope that that's helpful in envisioning how to really get moving on creating high quality book content. So let's just take a quick pause before we have our next question. And I want to remind you, here we are as I'm live right now. It's Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, and tomorrow at midnight, I believe tomorrow at midnight, Friday at midnight, we are actually going to raise the price of the VIP Author Success Pass. It's been available now for $97, and we're going to increase that price to $197. So if you've been on the fence, if you're wondering whether or not it's right for you, this is an opportunity to get lifetime access to 25 authors and entrepreneurs, $1,273 worth of bonuses, as well as access to our private Facebook community with all of the VIP pass holders from the Book Business and Brand Summit. And as I finish my short plug for the VIP Author Success Pass, I'll just drop in the URL here to the chat, which is simply bookbusinessbrandsummit.com/order. So I encourage you to jump on that if you haven't yet. We've got a great growing community of people in the private Facebook group, and there's still tons more content to come on the summit, and you can have access to it forever. So let's look at another question. Got a question from Bev Hodgson, who says, do you advise setting up a website for each book you write, or to set up one website using your own name? This is a good question, especially if you're a multi-book author. And I guess the answer is, both. I think it makes a lot of sense to own the domain that is your book title. Or if that title exactly is not available, you can add some variation like the word "the" ahead of it or the word "book" after it. And I have an example of this too. I'm going to show you thelifestyleentrepreneur.book.com, which is the dedicated page that I have for, surprise, surprise, my book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur. So I'm putting that in the chat now. And what you'll see if you go to that page is I set it up as both an informative page and also a page that gives incentives for people to purchase multiple copies of the book. So I guess this ties in to book marketing and answering Bev's question. So you should set up a book page for each book that you have. And of course, we provided you with a free, professionally designed book sales page template at the very beginning of the summit. And if you missed that or you don't have access to that for any reason, bookbusinessbrandsummit.com/template. You can download that right now. And that's just basically, a template design that you can use for your book page. On the one that I shared with you on thelifestyleentrepreneur.book.com, I set it up to say, okay, look, if you get one copy of my book, you can pick this bonus. If you get two, you can get this. If you buy 5 copies, you get access to a training, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, this is a way to drive book sales more than incrementally, more than one at a time, by actually pricing some of your other products, programs, services, and experiences in terms of books. So, for example, what would you do, or what would you give to somebody who bought 50 copies of your book? At retail price, not at a wholesale price, not a discount. What would you do for somebody that bought 50 copies of your book? What about 100? And it goes on. I think Gary Vaynerchuk did something similar to this. And if you bought like 2,000 copies of his book, he'd fly to wherever you were and give a keynote presentation to your business or do a one-on-one strategy session. So really, you can scale this up to a number of degrees. If your focus is on selling as many books as possible, consider pricing your products, services, and experiences in terms of quantity of books. So that's sort of a tangent on Bev's question, but of course it's relevant because we're talking about different ways to sell more books as well as build the different aspects of your business and brand. Now, in terms of setting up a personal website on yourownName.com, that is absolutely a great idea because, look, I mean, if I think 2 or 3 years ago, if I Googled my name, a whole hodgepodge of stuff came up. Actually, now it's more like 4 or 5 years ago. But it was a bunch of stuff that I, was out there or other people had published. and I didn't feel like I had full control over my name online. And that was when I really set about to carve out my place on the internet with the lifestyle entrepreneur brand and with my own personal brand, Jesse Krieger, of course. So at jessekrieger.com, you can see my personal site, which talks about everything that I'm involved in: publishing, my own book, the live events that we have, the Book Business and Brand Building Summit. So if you're putting a site up on your own name, then that's, appropriately something that's more geared towards everything you're involved in and all that you do and provide in the different ways that you serve and do business. Whereas having yourbook.com, in terms of having the name of your book being the domain for a website, that is absolutely a great strategy. And look, in either of these cases, it doesn't have to be an expensive proposition. I mean, now I have a very, what I think, professionally and beautifully designed website for jessekrieger.com. But before that, I had a very functional, if not, world-class site that I got put together for like less than $200. So I'll just talk about quickly how to do that. And what you can do is go do a search for different WordPress themes, take a tour around the internet, look at some WordPress themes. I would say look at some of the premium themes that are like $50 or $60. Find a theme where you like the design aesthetic, you like the fonts, you like the layout. Then just simply buy that theme for like 50 or 60 bucks, and then hire somebody from upwork.com to modify it and customize it to be specific to you. And now that itself isn't a very expensive proposition. I mean, for $50, $100, $150, you can get somebody to, upload all of your own pictures and book description and content if you don't want to mess with the technical side of things. But if nothing else, you can just buy the theme, hire a developer/designer, and give them the access info they need and let them do it all, right? Because this actually speaks to one of the other biggest questions and concerns that come up, which is people saying, I don't understand the technical side, or I don't understand the formatting, or I don't understand website development. And all of these things are not, I repeat, not things that you personally need to know how to do. Rather, I just want to give you the awareness of what needs to be done, and then the tools, the strategies on how to find and utilize people to do them for you, getting leverage and allowing you to focus on, really being the main face and voice and exponent for your book, business, and brand. So in terms of developing either a personal site or a book-specific website, the easy, quick, and dirty option is go get a premium WordPress theme. Go to upwork.com, upwork.com, formerly Elance. I think Elance was way better, but they merged into Upwork, and now that's what we've got to deal with. It still works, even if it's not ideal. And you can hire any number of designers, developers, to simply do all of that heavy lifting for you, install it, customize it, and boom, before you know it, you've got a live website you're only spending a few $100s on. That's the entry-level option. It's something I personally did for a couple of years before investing more heavily in building my current personal website at jessekrieger.com. But even to this day, lifestyleentrepreneurspress.com, I'll put a link in there for everybody. I did the same strategy with this site. So if you take a look at lifestyleentrepreneurspress.com and you think, oh, hey, that's a pretty good looking site, just know that I found a nice looking WordPress theme. I hired somebody and the whole thing was built for like $300, right? So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be you personally doing it. And in many cases, it's better that it's not. I mean, unless you are strongly driven towards learning all of the different components, all the different aspects for your own personal enjoyment, I definitely recommend hiring people at a nominal fee online to do the implementation work for you so that you can stay much more focused on delivering great content, delivering great experiences to people, writing more, getting out and building community around your ideas, building your audience and engaging with them. That's in a sense, exactly what I'm doing on this summit. I mean, at a larger scale, beyond just getting your website up and having somebody hired to do that, you want to start to think about who would be on your dream team, who would be there handling different aspects of your business, so that you are no longer in the driver's seat, but you're rather like a traffic cop on the side of the road watching the cars go by. If you see something wrong, then you jump in, stop it, examine it, and put a new system into place so that it doesn't happen again. And I mean, as I was mentioning with this summit, I have a team of 5 people working with me to put this on. And some of those people themselves have teams behind them that they're working with. So I've got Naveed, our summit strategist, who's the man when it comes to virtual summits. Tom Morcus, JV, an affiliate partner manager. I've got a whole design team that's done all of the web pages that you see throughout this summit and designed the beautiful book sales page template that you all got access to. And then I have a copywriter that helps work on all of the emails. I mean, there's literally dozens and dozens, if not 100 plus emails that go this event, and somebody's got to write those. I mean, that's a huge job, and the list goes on. So if you think about what are the aspects of your business, what are the aspects of your career as an author that you are least excited about, those are the first things on the chopping block to get delegated and outsourced to somebody else, so you can stay in your lane and stay focused on what's really going to move the needle for you. And spoiler alert, that is creating more great content, creating interactive experiences, and giving experiences to clients, potential clients, even just people in your audience. It's getting on the phone in some cases and actually talking to people so you can synthesize what are the real underlying issues at play in the field that you're involved in. The same way that, the basis for all of the training videos I create is the conversations I have with dozens and dozens of authors. Once I synthesize a recurring theme, like something like the waiting game, right? The who am I to loop, then I'll create content on that and share it. And that's why I get a lot of feedback saying, wow, you really hit the mark with that video. It spoke right to me. Well, yeah, it's because I had numerous conversations with people that gave me and gives me a great degree of certainty that I can create a piece of content or training that's really going to hit the mark, because in a one-on-one conversation you can much more easily gauge somebody's reaction or how much that impact really hits them than you can in a one-to-many format like this. I mean, if you were giving feedback in the chat, then I'd know what you're all thinking, and if you're not, then I'm just sort of winging it, right? So making time as well to get into one-on-one conversations with people in your audience, that is for sure going to give you insight on how you can better serve and support them, which in turn circles back to you selling more books, building your own personal brand, and of course, growing your business. So let's see if we have time for another question, and then we'll start to wrap this live Q&A up for the day. Yeah, I think we tackled a lot of good content there. And what I've shared with you guys here in the chat thread is are a number of resources, actually. So I encourage you all to go check out my YouTube channel and watch some of those videos, one on the productivity and progress, the whole 1 to 2 hours a day, 3 to 4 times a week, which I linked to. And you can also reference the Lifestyle Entrepreneur book for an example of a book-focused page that's different than the book sales page template that we gave you as part of the summit. And if you want to see how to get a good-looking website together for just a few $100s, then check out lifestyleentrepreneurspress.com, keeping in mind that that was created with a premium WordPress theme for like $60, then hired somebody for like $150 or so to get all the book content, all the pages structured, and make it customized. And in terms of how to structure your book, I gave you a link to how to become a best-selling author in 2016 4-part video training series that really starts from square one of how to structure your book for success from the beginning, then how to come up with a content framework that really hits and meets your audience where they need it most, and moves on to cover cover design, interior layout, formatting, and everything that gets you prepared to go into your launch day. So taking you from idea through to a book that's just about ready to launch, that's all involved in the How to Become a Best-Selling Author in 2016 series. And finally, the first video link that I shared, don't wait another day, addressing the number one concern that I see people have, which is asking that question, who am I to? W-A-I-T. Waiting, waiting, waiting. And instead shifting that to who can I help? Who can I really serve? Who can I move the needle for with the accumulated knowledge and experience that you have? Keeping in mind that spectrum of a total beginner and the world's foremost expert and everybody else being somewhere in between. The people that are a few months or years behind you are the ideal people that you should speak to, looking at creating resources, training, and material that you wish you've had, you wish you found back when you were in their position. And of course, the opposite end of that spectrum, going up towards world's foremost expert, those are the people that you seek out and learn from. Maybe that's the reason you're here on the summit. You know, if you want to learn from somebody who has published 20 books and has another 20 more coming, then, you know, I'm a little bit further down the path than somebody who's just getting started in publishing. And yet, as we've seen on the summit, or you will see, if you're not already a VIP pass holder, you know, I've interviewed David Hancock, the founder of Morgan James Publishing, that's 2,700 plus books in the market. So there we are again on the spectrum, where it doesn't mean I need to have 2,701 books to be a credible authority to speak on publishing, but rather it means that from the place where I'm at, I can help almost anybody who's just getting started or has a couple books in or really wants to leverage their book to build their business and brand. And at the same time, I look upline and try and learn from the people that are where I want to be in a couple of years. And make no mistake about it, I will definitely have 1,000 books published. Let's say within 5 years. I think that's a pretty fair goal. So with that, you know, thank you all for joining me here, and I hope that this live Q&A was helpful. I will continue to try and respond to all of your personal questions that you sent when I asked, you know, what's your number one question or concern about writing your book, getting it out there, and using it to leverage and build your business and brand. I'm enjoying the personal conversations, the interactions I'm having with many of you. I hope you're enjoying the summit. And don't forget to get your copy or your VIP Author Success Pass before the price goes up tomorrow at midnight. So still for only $97, you get lifetime access to 25 trainings, videos, interviews, $1,273 worth of bonuses, access to our private Facebook community where you'll meet and network other like-minded authors and entrepreneurs, and of course, get to have a direct channel of communication with me even after the summit is over. So you can go to bookbusinessbrandsummit.com/order to lock in that $97 price for the Author Success Pass. And we'll see you tomorrow for our live broadcast with Nan Akasha, the founder of Bliss Life Press. This woman is a powerhouse. And tomorrow is also our day of really looking at, you know, how do you incorporate philanthropy and service into your book, business, and brand? And I know that that's something on a lot of your minds, a lot of your hearts out there, is how do you tie in your book to making an impact? Well, that's what we're going to dive into tomorrow. And Nan's also going to lead us through a facilitated process to really get into the right mindset to create, to serve, and to be the main exponent for your message to the world. So that's it for now. Thank you for being a part of the Book, Business, and Brand Building Summit unfolding. And I will see you in the very near future. Bye for now.